Hello, I am Tara with my mom Jill, and we are the authors of the Dining on a Dime cookbook where you can eat better, spend less, and save on your grocery bill. Over 1,200 recipes and tips in our cookbook that will save you money on your first trip to the grocery store. We have testimony after testimony of people who have done it. Today, we are talking about how my mom spends $80 a month on her grocery bill. And part one was the other day. You can go back and check that out, and this is part two. So go ahead, Mom.
All righty. Well, I did serving size last time, and I was going to do leftovers this time, but I wanted to tack on one little thing from the last one we did. When I was preparing to do these videos, I was sitting there writing my notes out, and my Bible was laying open on the table. And I just happened to glance up and it was talking about Jesus feeding the multitude with the handful of loaves and fishes. And it made me think serving size, and we're so hung up on eating the proper foods, making sure we get all the fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, they're so expensive. How can I buy, all these expensive ingredients, organic, non-organic, gluten-free, blah, blah, free, this, that, and the other. And we get really hung up on our food. I mean, mentally, we're obsessed. We really are obsessing to the point that I heard a psychiatrist say that this is the new eating disorder. It used to be anorexia and bulimia and that type, that they said they're finding women within a certain age group, like 40 to 65, worrying about if they're eating stuff with no red dye, if they're gluten-free, getting all the sugar, sodium, salt, organic. They are obsessing about their food. And when I was doing the notes on this, like I said, I was reading that story about Jesus doing the loaves and fishes, and it dawned on me. He took a little bit of fish and a little bit of bread.
Yep.
He wasn't worrying, stewing, that there were not 4 fruits and vegetables in this meal. He knows our body better than we know. And yet he gave the people, all he gave them was a little bit of fish and a little bit of bread. He knew the food was not the main issue. It was just sustaining them to make it home or to listen more or whatever.
Yep.
He wasn't worried about how many fruits and vegetables they got.
Yeah.
So be careful in all the things we're talking about on these videos, not to be obsessing.
Yeah. So I'm going to obsess about something real quick as I'm looking at you. I want to know why, as you're seated here, my brother's picture is showing, but mine isn't. Thank you. Okay, you can go back now.
Do that now. It's because I love him more.
I know you do.
I mean, that's just so simple a given. I love him more. And another thing going along the same line, it kind of goes in with wasting and eating too much, is I was sent another video. I don't do everything on the internet. I study my experience. We've studied this for years, but just recently a viewer sent me another video, and it was kind of a fun one because it was done by a young college kid in Norway. Now, I always think of Scandinavians as being healthy, don't you? I mean, you were in Sweden, weren't they relatively healthy? And that type of thing. And so I always think of them as eating healthy and doing healthy. Well, he was showing on serving, this kind of goes over into the serving size section too a little bit that we did before. He said, this is what we do for lunch here in Norway in college. He had a piece of bread and he put a really thin layer of butter. He said, this is what Americans put on if they put like butter on there. And he slapped big old thick, and he was right. And he said, we don't do that here. And he scraped off all that butter and just barely had a thin coat. Then he showed a thin piece of lunch meat, or I guess you call it deli meat maybe, or something like that. It looked like bologna, thin bologna to me. And a piece of cheese. And you could actually see the light through them. They were so thin. And he said, this is what we do for a sandwich. And he laid the one piece of meat on, and then he put a second piece of bread. And he said, this is how we do. He said, we wouldn't dream of doing the lunch meat and the cheese together. You either had a cheese sandwich or you had a lunch meat sandwich. But he said, Americans, he said, they'll put 3 or 4 or more of these pieces of meat on here, and then 3 or 4 cheeses on top of that, and have these big old thick sandwiches with vegetables in them and everything. And that's their lunch. But he wrapped that one sandwich up.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he had. He didn't have potato chips and cookies
Mm-hmm.
and a fruit and a
Yeah.
carrot sticks and everything. We send more than that with our little kids to school.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So what the point is, you're spending so much money on your groceries because you're eating too much. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you have got to back off and rethink. And it may be hard at first, but if you do follow some of the things we tell you, you won't have cravings that much. You'll be satisfied
Mm-hmm.
if you follow the food pyramid and get a balanced meal and not overeat, of anything. But
Yeah.
I got really tickled when he was showing the differences in the sandwiches,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd seen a hoagie that day advertised, and it was
It's ridiculous. A
showing up.
Subway sandwich is actually like 4 or 5 sandwiches.
Oh yeah. Oh
It's
yeah. If I
crazy.
get one, I can get
Yeah.
almost 4 meals out of a
Yeah.
Subway. So anyway, so the next thing, besides the serving size, you can save 50% on the serving size, like I said before. So you're spending $800 on groceries. You can cut down to 400
Mm-hmm.
just with serving sizes. The next thing is not to waste the food. They say they've now proven that most Americans waste 50%
Mm-hmm.
of the food they buy. You go to a restaurant and you sit there and watch the tables around you and look what's left when the people get up.
And then they don't take it home.
I know. I know.
That's what makes me mad. They get their kid a drink this
Yeah.
big. Their kid eats literally this much because they
Mhm.
filled up on a quarter of that soda, and then
Yeah.
they just leave it sitting there, and then they get the bill for $75 and they can't figure out why they can't get out of debt.
Yeah. You gotta watch. Don't throw that food away.
No.
You pour your child a large glass of juice,
Yeah,
like
it's
a 10,
ridiculous.
12 ounce, and they'll drink about this much of it, and you dump the rest out. Milk. Well, my kid, they need milk. Kids need milk.
No, they
That's
don't.
They don't need as much as you think. First of all, serving size, but second of all, don't put it in such a huge glass, and they get more than their serving size, and then you just waste the rest and throw it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, there's
You
no reason.
save another 50%
Mhm.
by doing, you're
Yeah.
saving your leftovers. The other day, I went to make a apple crisp. I had some apples and I was making up the apple crisp, and I know better. I can't believe I started to do this. I peeled the apples and I started to scrape the cores in the apples and dump them in the trash. First of all, I never do that. If nothing else, I throw the cores out in the compost pile.
Mhm.
But and the apple peels, I'll dehydrate them and make them into powder. I try to use all the food to put in tea, make them into powder, put them in tea. I try to use all the food I have and not throw anything in the trash. I barely have one sack, maybe one and a half of the little grocery bags worth of trash, and I don't even use my garbage disposal.
Mhm.
So so I started taking those apple peels and brushing them in my hand to dump them in the trash. I thought, what am I doing? First of all, I was hungry, and I thought, why don't I eat the silly apple peels?
Mhm.
And I ate those apple peels, and that was one serving of fruit.
Mhm.
It filled me up that much, and there was that many of them. It was one serving of fruit. If I just automatically scraped those into my hand and dumped them in the trash, I would have thrown out one serving worth of fruit
Yep.
alone. I just was wasting it.
Mhm.
I'm not talking about leftover people. When we say you got to use your leftovers too, people say, well, uh, my family won't eat leftovers.
Oh my goodness.
First of all, I'm not
Makes me
talking
so
about your
mad.
leftovers from meals. I mean, I will talk about it, but in this, I'm just talking in general, wasting food. But you have got to take those leftovers. If I have, let's say, rice, I, I, I have a cup of rice. Well, a lot of people just throw that out. It's not that much, even a half a cup of rice. What I do is I take that rice and I'll either pour a little bit of water over it with cinnamon and sugar and let it set overnight, and I have one serving of breakfast in the morning, instead of throwing that out and saying, well, my family won't eat leftovers. But you can eat
Mhm.
my kids love to have the rice cereal like that in the morning. I could take that rice, I could add a little bit of whipped topping with some canned fruit into that, and I've got like a rice
Pudding type thing, yeah.
pudding type thing.
Mhm.
Um, you could take that rice.
Make it into stir fry too. Nobody makes it into stir fry.
Or I keep, like, I can't use a whole can of cream of chicken soup, so I take a little bit of cream of chicken soup. I had some broccoli left from supper too, and I've got like rice and the broccoli, stir it together with a little bit of leftover chicken or make new chicken, and you've got a chicken casserole. Your family doesn't even know they're eating leftovers, so don't do that. If I have leftover mashed potatoes, I will take them and make them into a potato pat. Even if you have 4 or 5 tablespoons, you can make that into a potato patty.
Yeah, we have potato pancakes right here, dining on a dime. Yep.
Yeah, and you can do that, or you can use that to make bread, make dinner rolls. It makes them really.
And once again, our leftover index. Everybody doesn't use it, but our leftover index. Just look at the food that you have left over, and it'll give you recipes we have that you can use that food.
I was just getting ready to read. I don't have my glasses on. Maybe you can do. But like here, if you have, like, maybe your bananas are getting brown, you don't just always need to do banana bread. It's got like banana cake, banana French toast, banana milkshake, bananas with oatmeal, banana pineapple gelatin, smoothies, yogurt popsicles with bananas. That's just under bananas.
Yeah.
The one thing we have, we've got beef. We've got a whole list of what to do.
And stop wasting food like bananas. When your bananas get brown.
Whole list. I don't know if they can see that or not.
Yeah, beef.
Of beef. What to do with beef. Buttermilk. Can you believe it?
Yeah, but like with bananas, don't throw your bananas that are brown away. Throw them in the freezer with the skin and all.
And then
throw them in the freezer. Then pull them out and make banana muffins or make banana cake or make banana bread. Any of those things you can, or throw it in your oatmeal. You could do any of those things.
And here we've got apple. What do you do when you have like a half a cup of apple juice? We've got listed what you can use: apple juice, applesauce, leftover buttermilk. That's why I told Tara, leftover broccoli. If you just read the index on our book and use the index, you say, look, these are all things to do with leftovers, leftover eggs, ham,
sour milk. People don't know you can use sour milk for baking. And let's say you're not baking anything right away, put it in ice cube tray and freeze it and put it in a freezer bag, and then just pull out as many ice cubes as you need. I think each ice cube is, I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 tablespoons. I think it's 2 tablespoons is an ice cube. And do it that way.
Yeah.
And you're not throwing away food.
And you see, if you combine the serving size and only give the proper serving size of milk that you're supposed to, you're not going to be wasting it. If you only pour in the right amount of cereal and milk in that cereal bowl for your child, you're not going to be throwing out.
Yeah.
They kind of work together is what I'm trying to say.
And you can literally save $200 to $300 a month doing this.
I say 50% or more.
$200 to $300 a month is what people are throwing away.
Free bill is.
Yeah.
You know, that's what, depending on what you spend, you can save. So
all right, so we're going to be back next time, guys. We are the authors of the Dining on a Dime cookbook, Eat Better, Spend Less. Go check it out at livingonadime.com, where we also have thousands of free articles and recipes to help you save money and get out of debt. And go back on our YouTube channel here. We have over 1,000 videos for you guys. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you guys next time.